Christine Pedi has been in and around Broadway since 1998 with her debut in the musical Little Me. After that, there were other musicals and plays on and off Broadway. Known for her impressions of female performers, she showcases them in one-woman cabaret shows, revues, and benefits. You can hear Christine Monday through Saturday by listening to the show on Broadway, streamed on Sirius XM. We have a lot to talk about with Christine, but first, here's a clip of some of her work.
Sorry, I cannot hear you. I'm kind of busy.
I'm kind of
busy. I'm kind of busy. Sorry, I cannot hear you. I'm kind of busy. Just a second, it's my favorite song they're gonna play. And I cannot text you with my drink in my hand. You know what I mean? You should have made some plans with me. You knew that I was free. And now you won't stop calling me. Well, I'm kind of busy. Stop calling, I don't wanna think anymore. I left my head and my heart on the dance floor. Stop calling, I don't wanna talk anymore. I left my head and my heart on the dance floor. Stop telephoning me. I'm busy, I'm just at a party. And I'm sick and tired of my phone ringing. Sometimes I feel like I live in Grand Central Station. Tonight I'm not taking no calls, cause I'll be dancing. Tonight I'm not taking no calls, cause I'll be dancing. Stop calling, I don't wanna think anymore. I got my head and my heart on the dance floor. Stop calling, I don't wanna think anymore. I left my head and my heart on the dance floor. I was making lasagna for Michael Jackson, Elizabeth Taylor, and Halston. Beyonce's sister friend, congratulations! Gene Kelly, Fred Astaire, Easter Parade. I couldn't have to. No, Debbie Reynolds. Did you get the baby gift I sent? Yeah, it was by Halston. You know, red is the new navy blue. It is true that I told my daughter. And I call her up and I was saving a spot. But she lives in the naked apartment and is walking and pay for the job with a bottle of thought. Look down, don't look on me in the eye. Look down, you're hell to die. Right? At the end of the day, you're another day older, a complete chore. And it's all you can say for the life of the poor. Lovely ladies waiting in the park, ready for the clock in the dark. Tomorrow is the judgment day, tomorrow is not far away. Tomorrow will just come on, one more God in heaven has in store. One more day, one day.
Amazing. Christine, come on in.
Good, not bad for this early in the morning. And I'm wearing the same scarf that I was wearing in that video.
That's great. Oh my gosh. And your apartment looks great. You know, that's...
Oh, please. I wonder whose apartment this really is.
I don't know, but we've seen it a lot in some of our...
No, but I just suddenly realized someone actually lives in this apartment somewhere.
Maybe we'll see them walking to the bathroom.
Damn. Anyway.
So, Christine, where did you come from to get on Broadway and do the wonderful things that you're doing?
Where did I come from?
Where did it
start? A long
start?
time ago, my mother and my father. I come from the suburbs of New York City. I was born in the Bronx, and then they moved in a year or two. No, about 3 years. They moved to Westchester, just like a half hour from New York, and that's where I grew up. But I didn't really have any understanding of Broadway growing up at all. I mean, I knew more about movie musicals, and I didn't understand that there was a place called Broadway. I didn't know what that was. There were 2 cast recordings I was aware of. The Most Happy Fella and My Fair Lady, which, I knew they were plays, but I didn't know that there was this fairyland just 30 minutes, south. And it wasn't until high school when I got involved in the school plays that I understood the whole dynamic of what a Broadway musical was. And that's when I started soaking it up like, a sponge without benefit of what the kids today have, my channel on Sirius XM radio, where they could just turn it on and in 24 hours get a crash course in, at this point, 80 years worth of musical theater. I was just looking and you know what it's like. I went to my library. I looked through not too recently all the DVD. No, let's go back even one more generation of media videotapes that I had, and I went through them all. And I realized that I would have to say 90% of what I videotaped off the television was from public television, because that's where we found, uh, the resources that were important to those of us who love musical theater was all on, except for the Tony Awards, it was all on PBS. And so, I'd soak it up from PBS and then I made the correlation between the movies I grew up watching and their original Broadway versions. And and then in college I became the editor of I became the arts editor of the college radio station and discovered that I could get press seats to things, free tickets to Broadway shows.
Where'd you go to school?
I went to Fordham University in the Bronx. So I used to get on the Ram van, which was the van that took students for $1 from the from the Bronx campus, the Rose Hill campus, to Lincoln Center, which is around the corner from my house now. And I'd get off at the Lincoln Center campus and I'd walk into the theater district and I'd see my shows and then I'd reverse it. And that's how I got back home to my Bronx campus, and I'd drive back to my parents' house in Westchester. And I did that for 4 devoted and dedicated years. And but I didn't perform. I mean, I performed a little bit in high school, and in college I did nothing. There were no opportunities in college, but I was doing radio in college. And that was plenty, because it was just two of my best friends are my college radio friends. More than that, I have more, but 2 of my closest friends are from those times. And so I didn't quite miss performing because, first of all, I hadn't developed those chops quite yet. In high school, just a little bit, but I was so fully involved in the magic of radio, which still is magical and always will be. It wasn't until I graduated that which I loved, by the way, graduating from college and not having to go to school anymore. I was so happy I was done with that. I wanted to just be a free agent in the world, and I started to do community theater up in Westchester in very affluent communities, Chappaqua, where the Clintons live, And so that's when I really started to flex my muscles and learn about performing and learn that I had a voice and play.
What were some of your first roles there in that community theater?
First role I played was Mabel Norman in Mac and Mabel.
Oh.
And I called up Jerry Herman because I had interviewed him in college. And he picked up the phone. And I said, "Hi, I interviewed you in college." And I said, I'm doing a production of Mac and Mabel. And he went, "Oh, Christine, you're doing Mac and Mabel. That's wonderful." And he couldn't have been more invested. And he said, "Who's playing Mac?" And I said, "Jeff Schlottman." And he said, "Oh, you have to tell Jeff." And he started to give me all these pointers and he told me stories about, some of the pitfalls of the original production. And um, so
Now, who was in the original production? Was it Robert Preston and Bernadette?
Peters and Lisa Kirk. And um, it was gorgeous score, but it always had issues with the book because, as he said, love her, hated him. And it was a depressing story. It was about their relationship making silent movie shorts, the comedies. And then she just sort of fell into, a lot of, I don't know, bad behavior and took up with William Desmond Taylor, who was a director of serious silent films. And then he was murdered. And she was implicated in the murder, although she was found not guilty of it. Mary Miles Minter, I think her name was actually apparently, you know, I think put in jail for it. I don't know, but it wasn't Mabel Norman. Didn't matter back then, though. When you were tainted with just even a breath of scandal, that was it. So it
So
was
you're working in community theater. You're doing Mac and Mabel and some other things. How long were you in community theater before you decided to there might be bigger things?
I was doing it for not that long. I was doing it for about 3 years. Well, it didn't seem long to me. I mean, it seemed long to me at right now. 3 years doesn't seem long. To some people it might. I don't know. But I had a job as a, secretary, executive assistant, whatever you want to call it, for a telethon, which was sort of connected to my communications major, but it really wasn't. It was just a desk job. And I had been doing such quality theater. I did Mac and Mabel, Funny Girl, Evita, Little Shop of Horrors, Joseph in the Dreamcoat, My Fair Lady, these beautiful and really beautiful community theater productions. I really decided I wanted to try to pursue this. So I quit my job. I didn't know anybody in the business. I had one friend, John Tracy Egan, who was my Che in Evita, and he was off in Zurich doing Cats in German Swiss. And he was the only friend I knew who was in the business. But other than that, I didn't know how to do it. I just got backstage and showed up at every open call you could possibly imagine. And I did that for over 5 years. And I mean, I got 2 jobs. And, I was, let's do the math. I was, 4 dress sizes thinner and how many decades younger. And it just couldn't get arrested. And I went to every open call you could imagine. So, yeah, it was 5 years of that. And I finally said, no more. I'm not going to go to another open cattle call, non-equity, of course, no agent, no credits. No agent would see me without credits. And I just said, I'm not going to do it. I'm not leaving the business. I didn't say that to myself. I just said, I'm not, I've given as much energy to this pointless process as I am going to. I'm not going to another cattle call with hundreds of girls unless I'm not going to another audition unless I have an agent submission like a human being. I had no idea how that was going to happen, but I just said, that's it. No more cattle calls. And it was just like I put down my burden. I just didn't know what didn't have a solution, but I no longer accepted the problem. I was I was no longer going to live with the problem. That was it. The very next item that I read in Backstage was for an audition for Forbidden Broadway. Now, I always knew that I probably might have been right for that show. I don't know why. I just felt like I might have been right for it. And it was an open call, but it was Forbidden Broadway. And I just felt like there was I don't know. So I just looked up and I said, okay, but this is the last one. And it was the last one. And I went, and there were 200 girls, and I was their first choice.
But
And
first, let's explain what Forbidden Broadway is, and then tell me about your audition. What did you do, and what did they have you do?
Forbidden Broadway is a spoof, musical comedy satirical review done at the time, and it's moved to different size theaters, but it was done at a cabaret space where people were drinking, and it was small and kind of naughty, not naughty in a dirty way, but just like people were saying, scandalous things about the theater. And it parodies the music with parody lyrics of Broadway shows, Broadway stars, Broadway trends. And it had been running almost 10 years by the time I got involved in it. And my audition was I sang Shy from Once Upon a Mattress. Then they asked me if I did any is this thing on?
Yes.
It is. Okay. They asked me if I did any impressions, and I said, well, not really. I do my Italian grandmother. And they said, okay, do her. And I did. And then they said, do you do Carol Channing? And I went, well, everybody does Carol Channing. And I had met her because I volunteered backstage at a big tribute to Julie Stein at Avery Fisher Hall, and I had escorted her to her dressing room, and she turned to me and she just said, and what is your name? And I said, Christine. Well, I'm Carol Christine. And I just about died when she said my name. And they loved that. And then they asked me to do a little Ethel Merman, and they sent me home with an Ethel Merman and a Patti LuPone and a Barbara Streisand. And I came back and did the best I could, which at the time was fine, but it wasn't terrible. But I was always funny. And I was cast, and I did a 3-month bus and truck tour, pretty much all one-night stands. We had a few 2-night stands, and we only had 5 days off where we weren't traveling or performing. It was, but I saw 46, excuse me, I have the hiccups, 46 states.
Wow.
Of the hiccups. And so it was a wonderful way to see America. I mean, from New the hiccups. It's so funny.
All right. We're going to take a little break here. You get a drink of water, and we'll come back because I want to talk more about your impressions. So we'll be right back with more with Christine Pedi. We're back with Christine Pedi. I want to talk to you about your impressions. So do you consider yourself an impressionist, a female impersonator? What is your title?
I consider myself an actress or a musical theater performer.
Okay.
And impressionist is probably the word I'd use. I mean, some people call it vocal impressions because in Forbidden Broadway, we wear costumes. And so technically, I'm an impressionist where I do a full transformation. But when I'm not doing Forbidden Broadway, I don't wear costumes. And I don't particularly like wearing costumes. It's a pain in the ass, to be honest with you. You know what I mean? I just prefer conjuring up the voices. And when I was in Vegas a couple of months ago, out of a sense of unity, I went to see, because I had to. I went to see Rich Little. I mean, I had to.
Oh my
And
gosh. Is he still alive?
Yes. And he's well preserved. And I mean, he is. He really is. He looks great. He's had assistance, I'm sure. He did a bajillion impressions, many of which sounded like the other. But I grew up with Rich Little, and I know that was just simply. I know he has an impeccable ear, and I know that was a combination of either your hearing. When you lose your hearing, you can sometimes things don't resonate the same. Could be a little bit of that, and also a little bit of just that he's been doing it for so long that nobody's correcting him and saying, nobody's just saying you're losing that R is too hard, or that you're you're dropping that syllable sound or something. Um, I, but regardless, he was still the master. It was Yoda. And there wasn't obviously a costume in sight, and it didn't need to be. Um, so I just say an impressionist. I still have the hiccups ever. I sound like it's okay though. I'm trying to mask them. We'll just move forward now. I'll just.
Now, you got your start by doing these voices during Forbidden Broadway when they asked you to do a Carol and Ethel and Barbara. When did you start creating your own?
My dog knows that I'm having a little crisis here, so he's licking.
Oh,
He's just trying to. I'm okay, Clarence. This is my dog, Clarence.
hi, Clarence.
When did I do who? What did you say?
When did you start going out on your own and creating your, say, oh, I can do that voice, or oh, I
I
wonder if I
did a
can do that one?
cabaret. I did a cabaret act called Forbidden Divas, basically because there was a cabaret space that lost it lost a performer, and they needed to plug somebody into this spot. And I said, geez, I could probably put together an evening of Forbidden Broadway songs because I know them all. And so I just did an evening of all Forbidden Broadway songs. And it was all Forbidden Women, obviously. And um, and I thought, well, what's the next show I should do? Because I can't do. It was hard. It's a lot of singing. Because in Forbidden Broadway, I sing a song, I go change my costume, and two other people do a song, and then I'm on every other number, every third number. But to do a full 75, 80 minutes of nothing but vocal impressions is very hard on the voice. So the next show I did was called Great Dames. And that was an evening of songs made famous by great ladies of the stage and screen. So I could sing some great showstoppers or some real funny numbers. Or I could also do songs about those women that were impressions. So I kind of did a hybrid. And I wanted to do a grand finale. And I decided to do I Will Survive as about 7 or 8 different women, and I threw in some that I'd never done in Forbidden Broadway, like Betty Davis and Eartha Kitt and Katharine Hepburn and Joan Rivers, people I'd never done before. And so that's when I started just throwing in some of those people, like just out of my own.
You do several mashups. There's that one. There's the one of my favorites is your 12 Days of Christmas, and
Yep.
each day has a different female character, and then you
Right.
go through. How difficult is it to switch those? Because when you do the countdown of the days, you're going from voice to voice to voice to voice.
It's not hard. That's not hard at all. It's hard. Sometimes it's hard if the character's new. Like I'm working on Jennifer Coolidge, and I don't know how to get it right sometimes. It's not right yet. There's a sweet spot in my voice that when I hit it, it's impeccable, but I can't find it. I'm not sure where it is yet. It's driving me crazy.
I bet.
And so if an impression is new and and it's not a easy one for me, then it can be a little difficult. But uh uh but no, it's not. That's actually the easiest thing to do.
You do all the standards, the Carol, the Barbara, the Ethel, the Liza, Julie Andrews. They're all standards. You are developing Jennifer Coolidge. Any other newer people that you can?
No, there's really
to?
there's not a lot of new. They're not as eccentric as the old. Patti LuPone is the newest. Patti LuPone and Bernadette Peters, they're not new, but they're still alive and kicking.
Yeah.
I don't. I guess I mean, I've never really spent much time doing Idina Menzel because you have to do high belting to. You don't necessarily have to do high belting to do her, but because I don't belt that high, I just figure why bother. But I could probably do Idina Menzel. I could probably do Kristen Chenoweth again, but my voice isn't that high. But I could do a essence of her. Um, I don't know who. I mean, Audra's. And the funny thing is, I know some of these people, so I didn't know these other women. You know, I didn't know them. I knew them after I did them, but I've known a lot of the Broadway leading ladies. I don't know them well, but I certainly know them socially, and it is a little weird. It is a little weird.
Is there anyone you thought, oh, I really want to do them, but you just couldn't find it?
Oh God, I mean, geez, I mean, I just couldn't find it because I don't have it. Like Lilius White, who the hell could be that? I mean, she's just a miracle. Her voice is miraculous. I'd love to do her, but I just can't. You know. And then there's people that a lot of people don't know. Like Vianne Cox is a friend of mine, and I was chatting with somebody, and I started talking like Vianne just because I was saying, "Oh, Vianne was saying," and they were laughing hysterically. I'm like, "But first of all, I know Vianne, so I wouldn't want to do it. And secondly, not a lot of people know Vianne the way they know Kristen Chenoweth, and you know what I mean."
Right.
And so, but the other thing is that I had the luxury of 8 shows a week in Forbidden Broadway and then thereafter in NEWSICAL for 10 years. So I had the luxury of starting an impression and building it and working on it every day. And my Oprah got much better as a result of it. Susie Ormond I did, and Nancy Grace, those were people that at the time were, really always in the news. And so I had that opportunity. Now when I work on an impression, I don't have anywhere to do it. If I do it this week at an open mic and then I don't do it again for 4 weeks at another open mic, I can't I've lost the groove, and I don't know what the audience is responding to. Like it was a big luxury to have that, I have
Definitely.
to say.
Who's your
Yeah.
most requested impersonation?
Oh, I guess maybe Liza. I think my best one is maybe Angela Lansbury. Liza's, probably at the top of the heap. No pun intended. And Angela's a very good impression, and I do Liza and Joan Rivers on the Howard Stern show. So he's a big, big supporter of my Joan Rivers. So I'm very grateful for that, because he worshipped her because she was very supportive of him when he started out. And he it's very sad too that already, has she gone 10 years now? Maybe a little less than 10 years. And already it's not a given that young people know who she is. Which is a testament to how timely and of the moment Joan Rivers was. She did, she's not on any classic sitcoms.
No.
Joan Rivers was just always out there doing the thing that was of the moment, like Fashion Police, and writing books and stuff. She was not on a classic sitcom. So she was a different kind of a classic because she was just thriving in what was popular at the time. And sadly, I think that it's easy for this new generation to lose sight of how important she was, because there's nothing, unless they look at old Tonight shows and stuff, she's not connected. Can you think of anything that you know what I mean? When
No,
you
she
think of
wasn't in
her,
any. Did she ever do a Broadway show?
no,
Not a
well,
musical,
she
but
did, but she did
what? And,
uh Brighton Beach Memoirs, I think, or
oh,
no, the other one, Lost in Yonkers. I forget which one she did. Lost in Yonkers, I think. And she, but I mean an image in celluloid that the kids can stream, the kids can watch, that the parent can say, "Oh, watch this show. She was, a regular on Hollywood Squares." I don't know. It's just
yeah.
hard. I'm watching the Dick Van Dyke Show now. Prior to
Wow.
that, I watched all the Mary Tyler Moore shows. So if I want somebody to know how brilliant Dick Van Dyke or Mary Tyler Moore is, I can say, stream it. It's there. Joan Rivers, I got to say, Google her and look at different things, and so people don't know exactly what to connect her to.
But I think with your impersonation, that just her voice and her words are humorous, even if you don't know who she is. It's a
Oh yeah, it's a funny. That's true. I mean, that's a very good point. Some characters are funny. Some characters are funny just because they're funny. It's like that's the thing. I have a holiday show that I'm doing, which by the way we're streaming. So I don't know where the majority of your viewers are, but it's going to be December 5th and December 29th at 54 Below. One of those two, I think December 5th is going to be streamable. And it's at 9:30 p.m. Eastern time. So that's a decent hour on the West Coast anyway. So that's 6:30. But the point is, you talked about the 12 Divas of Christmas, and kids enjoy my holiday show because there's plenty of holiday songs and happy, silly, wonderful, jolly, festive songs, which we love. And there's a lot of comedy, and they don't know who the hell Ethel Merman was, but they know she has this loud, fast, silly voice. So the little ones, they know it's a silly voice, and they just appreciate the silliness of it. Even Carol Channing, it almost appeals more to the little ones. You know
right.
what I mean? Than the tweens and the teens who want to, think they know what be in on the joke. But uh, y- uh, yeah, so Joan Rivers is definitely just funny. Everything she says is funny. But I always tell them at Howard, I have to have a script. I say I cannot ad lib as Joan Rivers because I am not Joan Rivers.
No, no one could
I
do that.
was a genius at ad libbing, and so
Christine, there's more I want to talk to you about, but we've got to take a little break. But we'll be right back with more with Christine Pedi. All
okay.
right, yes.
I'm just loving my dog, everybody. Just loving my Clarence. Just loving my Clarence boy.
Well, Christine,
Yes.
you were on Broadway in the production of Chicago. Tell me about that.
Oh, well, it was, I'd seen the show 18 times when I got cast in it. And my dog is having a meal here. And I'm trying to do a radio show, Clarence. Do you care? He doesn't care. Um, I'd seen the show 18 times, truly 18 times. And I just lost my train of thought because I think I lost my headphones. But anyway, I got cast as Mama Morton. It took
Yes.
like 3 years. Fran Weisler, who has hired me to perform at personal events for her, said to me once at her house, she said, "You should be Mama Morton. I think you should be Mama Morton. Wouldn't she be a great Mama Morton?" And I thought, first of all, I never realized ever be old enough to play Mama Morton. I knew I'd never play Roxy or Velma. I never connected myself as a Mama Morton. And as she said it, I'm like, yeah, because okay, I guess the time has come. And I was thrilled because I'd never had a lead in a Broadway show. And it took, I think, 3 years for that to come to pass because it's a bit of a mix and match kind of a situation there. If Christy Brinkley's playing the lead, maybe she wants a Mama Morton that she's worked with before. Or if they have a new Billy Flynn, they want to keep people in the show. There's a balance, I guess, to it. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but it took a while before it was the appropriate time to plug me in. I had seen the show 18 times at that point, and so it took over 2 weeks for me to perform the show more times than I'd seen the show. And I just think it's a bulletproof show. It's a bulletproof score. It's when you're backstage at a musical that's been running for, at that point, I don't know, 20 years or something like that. I'm trying to think. 96, 2006, maybe it was running 18 years at that point. And a lot of the crew members, a lot of the backstage people had been there the whole time. And people are still humming along, you know. it's just a comment to the everlasting glory that is the score to Chicago, to be sure, and just Chicago as a whole. It's
You're Billy Flynn and Velma and Roxy.
Billy was I started with Adam Pascal from Rent as Billy Flynn. I was lucky. You see, when you get put in a show, especially when you're only in for 3 months, which is often how they insert people for 3-month sections. And this goes for people who have very big parts in complicated musicals too. When you get inserted into a show, when you're stepping into a role, you often don't get your put in is without lights, without an orchestra, and you get the cast and you get to do the numbers and you get to do your costume changes, but you don't get to do the show with full lights and orchestra because that's Teamsters and 802 union members, and it's expensive. Now, Mama Morton's an easy part. I got to walk on, park and bark, as they say. But I was still a nervous wreck, obviously. And I was very lucky that I got to do a full put-in with orchestra because they put Adam Pascal in as well. So I think it was just deemed, an economically and artistically a wise thing to do, to just spend the money and have us have a full put in. So I was there with Adam Pascal as Billy Flynn, and then he was replaced my last week or two by Alex Gemignani. That's Paul Gemignani's son, the famed conductor. And oh God, I think I had Amy Spanger was my Roxy, and Paige Price was Roxy as well. I had a lot. I was only in 3 months, but there were people coming and going. It's a great show. It's a great
Now,
show.
during your span in your career, you were also in a few episodes of The Sopranos. Tell us about that.
I got an audition and I did just a few lines, but a pivotal role. I was Bobby Bacala's wife, and I came to a very sad end. And here's the funny spin on it. It was 2 episodes, possibly more, they said. And I thought, I'm married to a freaking major character here. It's like I was very excited, but never counted my chickens because it's The Sopranos. And it's the first episode. I'm in wardrobe, and the wardrobe coordinator says, "Oh, Christine, meet Aida Turturro, who plays, Janice Soprano." And I said, "Oh, hi." She and then I was introduced as, "This is Christine. She's playing Bobby's wife." And Aida goes, "Bobby, oh yeah," and then something happened. Oh, never mind. And then she walks away. And I thought, oh, Christ. I knew it. Okay. I knew it. All right. I should have Richard, And sure enough, I came to a ruinous end. And then that bitch Janice moved in on my man. But he could not defrost my ZD for many, many episodes. And he wept at my grave. He brought a anniversary cake to my grave. Okay. So I was remembered. Anyway, I go to do this to many years later. I mean, like 10 years later, I go to do Chicago, and they're looking through costumes, Mama Morton costumes, of which there have been many Mama Mortons. Guess which costume I fit into? Aida Turturro's costume.
No, you're the 4th person of the Sopranos cast we've had here on Amber Live. We've had Maureen Van Zant, we've had Robert Venero, and Joanna Bonero on the show as well. We've talked about the Sopranos many times. Tell me about what your show on Sirius XM on Broadway.
Well, that was actually came to me through my friend from Fordham University, Paul Cavalcante, who is a major DJ here in New York City on 3 major radio stations, and he's my oldest and dearest friend from college. And Sirius was in test markets at the time, and they were looking for a host for the Broadway channel. So he recommended me. And I went in on September 9th, 2001, and they said, well, they were very interested. Could I come back 2 days later to interview for the Jazz channel as well? But that was September 11th. And so that never happened. And it took them a very long time to get their paperwork together, but I was finally hired while they were still in test markets in May of 2002. And I have been there for 21 years on the Broadway channel. I mean, a full generation, a full life, a full lifespan of an adult, basically. I mean,
I love listening to that channel. I love listening to your show, Seth Rodesky, Sunday Fun Days, and we've had Bill Rudman on the show before talking about.
I love
his
Bill
On the Aisle
Rudman's show.
Oh, it's fascinating, the history that he tells, and I like each of the hosts have a different take on what they do. You give some personal aspects of your feelings about shows and people. Seth talks about all his connections that he's had over the years. I'm blanking out on Sunday Fun Days.
John Tartaglia.
I love he's such a positive person,
Yeah.
With what he says. And I love the way he tells you, oh, this show opened in so-and-so and ran for so many shows. And it's just a fascinating place to listen to. Now, Christine, I know that you are involved with Actors Equity, or you've done many benefits for that. Tell us about Actors Equity and your involvement.
Well, it's the Actors Fund, really, which is now called the Entertainment Community Fund. And first of all, there's a couple. There's Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS. Okay, and we all get involved in those fundraisers that happen twice a year. It's in December now, the Red Bucket Follies, they call it. And that is the culmination of 6 weeks of fundraising by the Broadway and off-Broadway shows during curtain speeches, And some of them just say, please put some money in the red buckets that people will be holding. Some of them go crazy, like Hugh Jackman, who sells literally the shirt off his back. And people pay crazy ass amounts of money for it. And God bless him. Hugh Jackman that guy walks the walk. He has raised so much money for Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS. And then they do the same thing in the spring for 6 weeks. And that culminates in the Easter Bonnets event, which is these events, Red Bucket Follies and Easter Bonnets. They're basically the best variety show you'll ever see. Any of the Broadway and off-Broadway shows that have raised money can submit and present a little entertainment. Sometimes it's a dance, sometimes it's a song and dance, sometimes it's a parody, sometimes it's a comic monologue, whatever. And it's just an afternoon, rather, because everybody works in the evening. It's just full of love, and nobody does it like us. Nobody. They don't do it like us in England. They just don't. We do this twice a year. And so that's done by Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS. Then there's the Entertainment Community Fund, formerly the Actors Fund of America. They changed their name this year, really. And they provide services and financial aid to anybody in the arts. So during COVID and during the writer's strike, for example, you didn't have to be an actor. You could be a lighting designer. You could be a wardrobe person. You could be a hairdresser, whatever. And if you needed some assistance with your rent or what have you, they helped. And I actually am the very grateful recipient of their generosity, because I live in an Actors Fund subsidized building, now called the Entertainment Community Fund, which helps me enormously because I have a disability. I have a low vision now, and I'm blind in one eye, and I'm rapidly losing my vision in the other. So the financial assistance is helping me And certainly until they, perfect the treatments for this, what it is I have, which I believe they will, because they are. I mean, they're all sorts of things they're doing in labs that are bionic and amazing. But, until that can present itself to me, it's going to be difficult and challenging to work. So, as an actress,
Right.
so this is, I am, if you're ever wondering where the money goes, if you give to the Actors Fund of America, here I am.
All right, Christine Pedi, would you please tell us more about your show that's coming up in December and how we can view that?
I will be there. I'll be performing, first of all, in West Palm Beach at the Kravis Center on December 1st and 2nd with my show Snow Business. So if you're in that area, you can see me live. If you're in New York, I'll be at 54 Below on December 5th and December 29th. And on the 29th, the Calloway sisters are going to be there at 7 o'clock. I'll be there at 9:30. So just come to 54 Below and don't leave. And anyway, I think December 5th is going to be live streamed. So if you go to the 54 Below website in a few days, they'll let you know which one of the two shows is going to be live streamed. So you can purchase a virtual ticket and sit down with the hot buttered rum and, enjoy the show. And I'm very happy about that, because especially because so many of my listeners are not in New York, I hope that they'll, take the opportunity to just, and if it's December 5th, you're not quite yet in the holiday psychosis yet. You know what I mean? You still think you have time. So you might be able to take a little break at, 9:30 Eastern and enjoy a holiday show. And I'm looking forward to it. And
Christine Pedi, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate talking to you.
Clarence says
Big
goodbye
fan.
too.
Clarence, nice talking to you. Take care of Christine for us, Clarence.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you
I
so
love you,
much.
Clarence boy.